All right, so today you're going to be creating a new animal. So we're going to be using a tool that is definitely one of the most difficult tools, but I think that you'll be all right. I used it in Photoshop and graphic design all the time, but as far as the tools that you have learned, it's obviously going to be the most difficult. So you're going to get introduced to a few new tools today. Really pay attention to the steps that I'm using to walk you through this. Now, you are not creating a duck horse. You need to think of two things that you could create, that you could put together to create a new animal. You're obviously going to want their colors to be similar, their textures to be similar. So you have to think about that. What are two things you could put together that are similar bodies, similar colors, that are going to be easy for you to blend together? Okay. Now, if you want to, you can follow along and do the duck horse with me, and then you can do your own animal to turn into Schoology on your own. Or you can watch the video and then create yours on your own and pause the video as you need to catch up to speed in Pixlr. All right. So whenever you go to Pixlr E, you're going to go to create new. And we're going to type in the name here over at the right, type in new animal. And I'm probably going to have to add a 1 because I already have a new animal. We are going to do 1400 by 1000. We don't need the background. Our picture is going to fill the whole canvas. So 1400 by 1000. Now, I knew that I wanted to put a white horse and a white duck together. So I went and I found a good side profile of a white horse. I copied it and I pasted it, and then I filled my canvas with it. So you need to make that bigger. Again, you are not turning in a duck horse. You are turning in your own animal, your own creation. Okay? But you can do this one just to get a little practice if you would like. So once I did that, I know that I am going to use a duck. So then I have to figure out, do I want the horse's body on the duck or do I want the duck's body on the horse? Whichever body of the animal you use, then it obviously needs to be in its natural environment. Okay, so if I chose a duck body with a horse head, then obviously the duck's going to be like on a pond or something like that. Being that I'm going to use the horse's body, the horse is my first image then. So whatever you're using as the body, that's going to be your main image. So then we're going to come in here and we're going to use what's called the clone stamp tool. So you're going to click on that. Okay, make sure that you have your layer selected. First, what we have to do is we have to choose the source. So I'm going to tell it that I want to pull from right here. Notice it automatically switches to paint. So now we are ready to paint. So I'm going to hold in with one finger and color with the other. So do you see the crosshair to the left? That's what color it is pulling. And it's even pulling colors from the picture that's off of my canvas because my picture is a little bit bigger than my canvas. So I'm coloring and filling this in. Okay, now if you have a large area to cover, like if we were covering up the whole body, obviously you're going to get some sort of weird pattern. So you can always go back to source and choose again. Now, I want to clean up his neck a little bit so that I can get rid of that like shadow. And then I'm also going to want to, so go back to my source. I want to click up here in the trees because I want to get rid of his mane a little bit. Ducks do not have a mane. So I'm going to get rid of that. So again, whenever it's on source, that's whenever you're clicking. So like I tap and I just told it that's the area I want you to pull from. When I paint, I can come over here and I can now paint and fill that. Okay. So that's the clone stamp. Play around with that. Get familiar with it first. Now I'm ready to get my duck. So again, side profile facing the same way. So I'm going to copy it and paste it. Get my arrow tool. The image is really big, so we're going to shrink that down. Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to crop out the head. All right. And I only want the head. So for me, the easiest way to do this this tool underneath your arrow is called the lasso tool. A couple different ways that you can do this. So whenever I get my lasso tool, the first one is just you can literally go and just draw around. And whenever you make your ends meet, it does that. That's your selection. Okay. Then you have the polygonal, the Bezier, and the magnetic. Okay. I like the magnetic for this picture. Now, the magnetic lasso tool does not always work well. So be careful with this. The reason that I'm using the magnetic lasso is because there is a clear-cut line that magnetic lasso is going to grab onto. Well, that's not what I wanted to do, guys. I wanted to zoom in just on my picture. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to get my magnetic lasso. Now, you could use the free lasso and come in here and do the best that you could. You could use your eraser even. But I'm going to use the magnetic lasso, and I would like for you guys to try it as well. So I'm just going to run right along the edge. I'm not going to get too crazy. I'm just running along the edge of him. Notice that it's automatically clicking there. Now, I don't need any of his body, so I'm actually just going to cut across here and then come back to the outside edge and just get as close as I can to his body. That way it's grabbing a hold of the duck. Because again, there is a very clean line of a variation in color. Okay, I'm back to the beginning and I'm going to click. Now I have those running ants. If I hit backspace, it's going to delete the head. That's not what I want. So I'm going to go to select and invert selection. Invert selection. Select, invert selection. Now you can hit backspace. And it takes away everything outside of that. Control D will deselect, get rid of those running ants. Now I am going to have to get my eraser. And remember, whenever we're creating clean lines, we want that softness all the way down. I'm going to get my eraser though and come in here and clean him up a bit. Because you will notice that lasso tool, whoops, took away too much of his beak. Didn't necessarily give us the clean lines that I want. I'm also going to clean him up back here on his back. Then, instead of having this hard edge right here, we want to soften that up a little bit. So I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to take the size up as well as the softness. Okay. So somewhere in the mid 200s, and I'm just going to clean this to where it fades. It's not a solid line. We're going to make it fade, and I'm even going to make the front of him fade a little bit. Okay, now when I zoom out and I move the duck, okay, I might have maybe a little too much of his body. We might need to fix that a little bit. Maybe shrink him down a little. I might actually bring him clear down here. So you can see where I brought him. So obviously I've got some horse cleanup that I still need to do. And I'm even going to clean up his body with that eraser. So it blends a little better, and you can see that now, how well it's blending. So I'm going to hide the duck, but I know I need to clean up down to about the horse's, mid-neck, where the neck conjoins with the shoulder. So I'm going to get that clone stamp tool again. My source is selected, so I'm going to tell it to pull from here, and I'm going to color here. Oop, sorry, wrong layer, guys. Make sure you're on the right layer. Now choose my source, and now I'm going to paint. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to clean all of this up. Now I can go and click on that layer, see how it looks. We're getting there. Not quite though. Keep cleaning this up a little bit. Whoops, whoops, whoops. Wrong area. We want to tell the source to pull from this grass and then paint. So if it starts to paint something that you're like, that's the wrong color, go check your source. More than likely you're pulling from the wrong area and you didn't tell it. where you actually want it to pull from. Now I do have a weird spot on this duck, so I'm going to take my, softness all the way down and take my size down a little bit. And I'm going to clean up that spot on that duck right there. Okay. Now that you have the animal created, now you have to label it. You don't get to just choose any random name for the animal. You need to take the two original names, so a duck and a horse, and there's a couple different ways that you can do it. You can blend them, splitting the word, about down the middle. You can put the first letter with the rest of the other word. Try a few different ways and see which way you like it. Okay. From this one, you could do a huck, you could do a dorse. I particularly like the duck horse. And make sure that your font color stands out. So I'm going to label it and I'm going to put that at the bottom. Okay, so there is my animal. Now, I will tell you, I would actually prefer, for this head to be a little bit bigger. So I might even play around with this a little bit more and do something a little bit more like that, maybe. Okay, so you're creating a new animal. You're going to play around with that lasso tool. You might still use the magic wand. You're still going to use your eraser, and you're going to use that clone stamp tool that I introduced you to. You will end with the text tool. Okay. Don't be afraid to ask questions whenever you get done with this. Go ahead and submit it. You will have class time to work on it. And if you don't get done, then obviously it needs to be finished by Friday and submitted on Schoology.